All right, here's our third video in section 1.5 on addition. And in the last couple of videos, we've been adding two numbers together. Two maybe positive numbers, two negative numbers, or one of each. Well, in this example, example number 3, we have a whole string of numbers that we want to add together, some positive and some negative. So it gets a little more complicated. Now there's a couple different ways you can do these problems. You can take two at a time if you want to, or what I like to do is I like to organize the numbers into positives and then negatives, and then put them together. So on example number 3a, I took all of the positive numbers. I had a positive 15, I had a positive 7, and I had a positive 14. And I'm going to take all the positives and add them together to get me a bigger positive. So 15 plus 7 plus 14 is a positive 36. Then I'm going to take all my negative numbers together and add them. So negative 2, negative 5, and negative 12. If I add all of those up, 2 plus 5 plus 12, I get 19, and then I keep their negative sign, so negative 19. So really, I have a positive 36 plus a negative 19. And now I have two numbers where I can use the rule that if I have a positive number and a negative number, I can really subtract the two, so 36 minus 19, and keep the sign of the bigger number, which is positive. So 36 minus 19 is 17, and since my 36 is the positive, the bigger number is positive, my answer is positive 17. So just a way to kind of keep myself organized with positive numbers versus negative numbers. Why don't you try example number 3b on your own? Pause the video, organize them into positives and negatives, and see if you get the same final answer as I do. All right, so for example number 3b, I took all of my positive numbers, that was the 10 and the 4, and so I got positive 14, and I took all the negative numbers, that's negative 3 and negative 11 and negative 1, and I got negative 15. So I have a negative 15 and a positive 14. I have a negative 15 plus a 14. One's positive, one's negative, so I'm going to subtract. 15 minus 14 is 1, but my bigger number is negative, so I know that my answer is going to be negative 1. Hopefully you got the same thing I did. So just being careful that you stay organized with your different positive and negative numbers. All right, the last example we're going to do here is kind of more of a problem-solving word problem example with adding positive and negative numbers together. But instead of just giving you the actual problem, they're going to make it into a word problem. So example number 4 says, during one 4-week period in 2011, the national average credit card interest rate dropped by 0.09%, then rose by 0.16%. Then it stayed the same that next week, and then it dropped again by 0.02%. By how much did the national average credit card interest rate change? So instead of writing it as an addition problem, they write it into words. And so it might be easier for us to take it out of words and make it into an addition problem. So the first one I saw is dropped, so I know that that's going to be a negative 0.09. Then it says it rose, which means it's a positive 0.16. Then it said it stayed the same, so I'm going to add nothing, plus 0. And then it dropped again, so then I'm going to add a negative, right, 0.02%. So using those words to interpret it into a math problem. So now I'm going to take all my positive numbers and all my negative numbers. So I took my negative 0.09 and my negative 0.02 to give me a negative 0.011. And then I took all my positive numbers, my positive 0.16 and my 0, which is just 0.16. So I have a positive 0.16 plus a negative 0.11. And now that I'm adding those two numbers together, I notice that one's positive and one's negative, so I can subtract those. So what is 0.16 minus 0.1? Well, I got 0.05, and I'm going to keep the sign of my bigger number, which is the 0.16. So really, at the end of that 4-week period in 2011, the national average credit card interest rate actually went up by 0.05%. I know that it went up because my answer was positive. If it was negative, then that means the credit card interest rate would have dropped by 0.05. But because it's positive, I know that the interest rate went up by 0.05%. Making sure that you write your answer and label it so that you actually know what those numbers mean.